Alrighty guys, so we're going to go over a document, a report that is going to be an eye-opening report. It is going to show you things that the average person out there has no clue about. I know that several of you guys probably already know about this, but the vast majority of people out there have no clue, no idea, no concept of the past and what has happened. Now this is going to be present time and yet in the past, as you'll see. The information that will be in this video is very, very important, and I hope you enjoy the information. This should be a blessing to most everybody out there. I am going to go over the document, over the report with you, and I'm going to tie it in with the scriptures to show you how everything fits together perfectly, precisely, and beautifully. Now, this document is going to start out telling you who the document's for, what the subject matter of the document is, and what the objective of the document or the report is. And then after we get through the first section here, eventually we'll get to a point where he goes back in time and begins to show you the kind of a history of things that and how it all came together. Very, very important document, guys. So let's go ahead and get started with this. This is going to be a multi-series video. There's absolutely no way I can make this in one video. They'll probably, each part of the series will probably be about an hour long. And you know, once I get it done, I'll get the next video up and out to you guys as quickly as possible, hopefully 20 to 30 minutes behind each video. So part 1 will come out 20-30 minutes later, part 2 20-30 minutes later, part 3, etc., until all the parts are done. And I don't know how many parts it'll be, but very crucial, very critical information, and I really hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope it blesses you in wonderful, wonderful ways. Let's get started. The name of the document or the report is Task Force Sheepdog. It is Operation Education, and this was done on 11 November 2016. Now that's very important that you catch the date. November 11th, 2016. So Obama is the president of the United States, and Trump is getting ready at noon Eastern Time, January 20th of 2017, to assume the position of president or commander-in-chief. Okay, so Trump is kind of in the future by a couple months, and Obama is in office at this point, and this is what is released to the public. It's called unclassified here. It's unclassified document report, and it is for the attention of the U.S. Special Operations Forces, so it's specifically for the military and the militia. Now understand that every constitution of each of the 50 states has in it a militia. Now the militia is really twofold, because the militia is you, the people, the kings and the priests. It is also like a military branch that governs the government, so that the government never gets to a point where it no longer fears you, who is the king and the priest. Okay, let me explain that to you. We're going to go to the scriptures real quick, and we're going to show you that you are a king and a priest. Okay, very important you understand this. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you are in Christ, you are a king and a priest on the earth. So we start out in the book of Revelations, the very first chapter, and then we go down there to the 6th verse. And it says, "And hath made us," that's you and I, the believers, "kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be the glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen." And indeed, amen to that. Now, we'll jump ahead to Revelation chapter 5 for further revelation on this matter. So, Revelation chapter 5 and verse 10, "And has made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth." Reign on the earth. Very important that you catch this, because understand two things happen. In the 1700s, this doctrine got created called futurism, where all of a sudden everything that's already happened in the past that would reveal the works of Satan and the Antichrist, all of a sudden are taught that they're going to happen in the future. And so now at this point, many years later, we're all looking, because of the programming we all receive, we're all looking for the events to take place in the future, when in reality every event that needed to happen has already happened and has happened in the past. And I have videos that I'm in the process of making that are going to reveal this to you, and who's who and all these kinds of different things. Now, the way I do these videos, guys, is I get the concept, the idea of the video, and then I set out to try to find the information, the graphics, and the different types of things that I'm going to need in order to present the video properly to each and every one of you. Now, that happens over time. I'll get this document, I'll find this piece of information, I'll find this graphic. You know, it all comes over time. I just wait on the Father to bring all the information to me. I just keep putting it into a folder for that particular video, and I slowly build up all the parts that I need for the video. And so I've got 5, 6, 7 different videos going all at once, where I'm just collecting the information, and then I begin to develop each of the videos. But I don't ever know which video is going to be finished next, or first, or second, or third, or fourth. I don't know. It's just however the Father gets me the information and allows me to create the video and to make the videos. So I never know which video is coming up next. I don't have a clue. But understand, guys, that in 1700 you had the futurism doctrine creep into the church and push everything off into the future and stop people from looking back in the past and to see that all these things have already been fulfilled, and that we're at the very end of the end of the end, where Jesus Christ returns back to the earth. Okay, so that's one thing. And then in the 1800s, you had another doctrine come out, another false doctrine that infiltrated the church and began to teach the church that you're going to get raptured out of here. The problem with the rapture concept is, number one, this verse right here, and we shall reign on the earth, not in heaven, but here on the earth. But secondly, the problem with this is that if the problem with the rapture doctrine is that if in fact there was going to be a rapture, it should have happened before the persecutions, before all the events of the scriptures happened. Which, so in other words, the rapture should have happened before anyone that's alive today, that's 120 years old or younger, anyone that's alive today, it should have happened prior to you ever being born. That rapture should have. So if there is a rapture, which there's not, because it's a false doctrine that wasn't created till the 1800s, but if there was, then the rapture should have already happened before you ever came into the earth, period. So it would have happened prior to your existence. But understand here that you are a king and a priest, and you shall reign on the earth, which is very, very important in and of itself. But you are a king and a priest. The government in the United States of America, Republic, should fear you. You are the king, they are your servant. But instead, you have this false, fake, foreign entity, at least since November 2nd, 1999, that has enslaved mankind, has lied and deceived mankind, and did not allow the Americans to become free at the end of the third bankruptcy and the end of the charter of the Federal Reserve. Now, I know a lot of people say that the Federal Reserve was put into perpetuity, meaning that it will never have an end. And I do agree with that statement, but you have to understand what John Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr. did, and he assigned Executive Order 11110, and effectively gave the U.S. Treasury allowed the Secretary to issue silver certificates if any were needed, and so forth and so on, basically bringing an end to the Federal Reserve notes. None of this is going to matter, because you're going to see that all of this is a fraud. We went through 3 bankruptcies, and at the end of the third bankruptcy, and guess what was put up as chattel for those bankruptcies? You and I, we the people. And they were going to collect on this. But again, all of this is a fraud. It is illegal and unlawful, as we'll see in the documents. But just understand that you are a king and a priest. So coming back to the document now, we have, for the attention of the U.S. Special Operations Forces, that's the military, and the militia, the people of the United States of America. The subject of this document, or this report, is the operational attempt to stop the illegal takeover and surrender of the 50 sovereign nation states of North America, known as the United States of America. Now he did it with with a capital and lowercase lettering, so that he is referring to the actual genuine republic, not the corporation, the United States Inc., that was created in 1871. Again, all of this is going to come together. He's going to give you historical facts. He's going to show you how the founders of the republic signed an agreement with Great Britain, and this entity was created that basically is an entity over the federal republic, and all these different things. You'll see how all this comes together. Again, this is a very eye-opening document and report. Very, very important report, and I hope it blesses you guys. I hope you guys get the word out to everybody on this. But this is going to give you an overall picture, and then hopefully as these other videos comes out, I'll be able to take you from the times of Israel to present times and show you how all of this came about. And I had planned to take a thread on Twitter, a very powerful, very well done thread, and present that to you in video format as a foundation to this document, showing you how the Vatican created the first ever trust, and that trust enslaved mankind, putting everybody under the Pope basically, and so forth and so on. But I never heard back from the gentleman, and since I have not his permission, I won't create a video for him. And so what I'll do instead, since he never gave me permission, is I'll just simply put a link to his thread in the description of this video, so you can go and read the thread. Very, very good thread, very well done thread, very powerful thread that really gets down to the nuts and bolts of how we got into this mess, and how the Vatican is very much involved in this, and how and it's very important that you guys understand these things. But nevertheless, since I never got the permission, I couldn't make that video prior to this series of videos. But understand, guys, that what is going to happen is that I'll be making videos that will cover the very things that he discusses in that thread, and more detail on top of it, to really show you guys what the Vatican is all about. The subject here is the operational attempt to stop an illegal takeover and surrender of the 50 sovereign nation states of North America, known as the United States of America. Okay, there is an illegal takeover, and they were attempting to surrender the 50 nation states that we call the United States back over to the British Crown, and that was their objective through this fraudulent entity. That there's two entities, guys. There's the real republic, and then there's this entity, fake, false, illusionary government that we're having to deal with. Now, the report objective here, Part A, Section A of the objective, is to explain and demonstrate both to the members of U.S. military and the people of the United States that there is an attempt to secretly and illegally take over and quietly surrender the United States of America back over into the hands of the British Crown. Now, understand that when JFK, John F. Fitzgerald Kennedy Sr., lost his life, he lost it because he spoke up against the Federal Reserve and against secret societies. He told everybody that it is repugnant. The word secrecy is repugnant to us today. And it is, understand that any time that anything has to be done in secrecy, then there is something very wrong going on. Because if there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, you're not going to do it in secret. You will do it in the open. You only go into secrecy when you are up to no good. So secret societies, which make up the New World Order, all of them combined together, that control and manipulate the governments and the peoples and all the different things, is repugnant. And that's exactly what John Fitzgerald Kennedy told us.
I have selected as the title of my remarks tonight, "The President and the Press." Some may suggest that this would be more naturally worded, "The President versus the Press," but those are not my sentiments tonight. It is true, however, that when a well-known diplomat from another country demanded recently that our State Department repudiate certain newspaper attacks on his colleagues, it was unnecessary for us to reply that this administration was not responsible for the press, for the press had already made it clear that it was not responsible for this administration. Nevertheless, my purpose here tonight is not to deliver the usual assault on the so-called one-party press. On the contrary, in recent months, I have rarely heard any complaints about political bias in the press, except from a few Republicans. Nor is it my purpose tonight to discuss or defend the televising of presidential press conferences. I think it is highly beneficial to have some 20 million Americans regularly sit in on these conferences to observe, if I may say so, the incisive, the intelligent, and the courteous qualities displayed by your Washington correspondents. Nor, finally, are these remarks intended to examine the proper degree of privacy which the press should allow to any president and his family. If, in the last few months, your White House reporters and photographers have been attending church services with regularity, that has surely done them no harm. On the other hand, I realize that your staff and wire service photographers may be complaining that they do not enjoy the same green privileges, the local golf courses, which they once did. It is true that my predecessor did not object, as I do, to pictures of one's golfing skill in action, but neither, on the other hand, did he ever be a Secret Service man. My topic tonight is a more sober one, of concern to publishers as well as editors. I want to talk about our common responsibilities in the face of a common danger. The events of recent weeks may have helped to illuminate that challenge for some, but the dimensions of its threat have loomed large on the horizon for many years. Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the president. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. It conducts the Cold War, in short, with a wartime discipline no democracy would ever hope or wish to match. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack as well as outright invasion. For the facts of the matter are that this nation's foes have openly boasted of acquiring through our newspapers information they would otherwise hire agents to acquire through theft, bribery, or espionage. That details of this nation's covert preparations to counter the enemy's covert operations have been available to every newspaper reader, friend and foe alike. That the size, the strength, the location, and the nature of our forces and weapons, and our plans and strategy for their use have all been pinpointed in the press and other news media to a degree sufficient to satisfy any foreign power, and that in at least one case, the publication of details concerning a secret mechanism whereby satellites were followed required its alteration at the expense of considerable time and money. The newspapers which printed these stories were loyal, patriotic, responsible, and well-meaning. Had we been engaged in open warfare, they undoubtedly would not have published such items. But in the absence of open warfare, they recognized only the tests of journalism and not the tests of national security. And my question tonight is whether additional tests should not now be adopted. That question is for you alone to answer. No public official should answer it for you. No governmental plan should impose its restraints against your will. But I would be failing in my duty to the nation in considering all of the responsibilities that we now bear and all of the means at hand to meet those responsibilities if I did not commend this problem to your attention and urge its thoughtful consideration. On many earlier occasions I have said, and your newspapers have constantly said, that these are times that appeal to every citizen's sense of sacrifice and self-discipline. They call out to every citizen to weigh his rights and comforts against his obligations to the common good. I cannot now believe that those citizens who serve in the newspaper business consider themselves exempt from that appeal. I have no intention of establishing a new Office of War Information to govern the flow of news. I am not suggesting any new forms of censorship or new types of security classifications. I have no easy answer to the dilemma that I have posed and would not seek to impose it if I had one. But I am asking the members of the newspaper profession and the industry in this country to re-examine their own responsibilities, to consider the degree and the nature of the present danger, and to heed the duty of self-restraint, which that danger imposes upon us all. Every newspaper now asks itself, with respect to every story, is it news? All I suggest is that you add the question, is it in the interest of national security? And I hope that every group in America, unions and businessmen and public officials at every level, will ask the same question of their endeavors and subject their actions to this same exacting test. And should the press of America consider and recommend the voluntary assumption of specific new steps or machinery, I can assure you that we will cooperate wholeheartedly with those recommendations. Perhaps there will be no recommendations. Perhaps there is no answer to the dilemma faced by a free and open society in a cold and secret war. In times of peace, any discussion of this subject and any action that results are both painful and without precedent. But this is a time of peace and peril which knows no precedent in history. It is the unprecedented nature of this challenge that also gives rise to your second obligation, an obligation which I share. And that is our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security, and we intend to do it. It was early in the 17th century that Francis Bacon remarked on three recent inventions already transforming the world: the compass, gunpowder, and the printing press. Now the links between the nations, first forged by the compass, have made us all citizens of the world, the hopes and threats of one becoming the hopes and threats of us all. In that one world's effort to live together, the evolution of gunpowder to its ultimate limit has warned mankind of the terrible consequences of failure. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Okay, guys, so I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. He did an amazing speech that very clearly showed you the power of the news press and how that they were beginning through the word national security or security. They kept amplifying the need for security, national security, covering everything up under national security. And he told you that there was it was declared a national crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. He also made it clear that he needed the help of the press to speak the truth, to reveal what's really going on. But instead, they took him out, and then the press controlled the narrative forevermore. Okay, so coming back to the document, we are again on report objective, and we are on section B. Prove, this is what he's going to do, prove beyond any shadow of a doubt to the members of the U.S. military and to the people of the United States, that's you and me, that the attempt to take over and surrender this nation to the British Crown is illegal and an act of absolute fraud. And in so doing, show them that their prayers to God to save this nation have been answered. Guys, those of you that are praying for God to save America, understand He already has. It's already done. You are watching a scripted movie. That's what Q tells you. You are watching a scripted movie. Understand that your prayers have already been answered. And this was posted 11 November 2016. Already answered. Coming back down here, we'll continue. Oh. So, overall outline. The individuals and activities of the entities that will be identified and discussed within this report are, now we're on section C. Subsection C here tells us that the royal family members at the very top of world control. As I've showed you guys, and I'm going to show you again real quickly, or we'll go back and we'll watch little segments of my videos, but I'm going to show you guys that there is a one world government and a one world religion. You are under the 666 beast system and have been before you were ever born onto the earth. Let's go back and take a quick look at two sections of two separate videos. Okay, so we're over here, and I posted this July 30th, 2019. The video the comments have asked for without end. Very, very eye-opening video. And I'm just going to mute out and let you guys listen to this segment, and then we'll watch one more segment. Then we'll get back to the article. If you know anything about the Freemasons, they've got the two pillars of Solomon on most of their diagrams. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here is one of the Freemasonry emblems, pictures, whatever you want to call it, and you can see that the two pillars are here, and they have a B and a J on it because it's Boaz. Because this all goes right back to your scriptures, guys. It's Boaz, and then over here, Jachin, or Jachin, Jachin. They always have the checkerboard. They got the stars. They always have some sort of light at the top, and they always have the compass and the square and, quote, the eye, as Q puts it. All the slush funds and everything feed, quote, the eye. Okay, the all-seeing eye. This is who they call Lucifer or Satan. Okay, just to make it basic. But again, this B and this J go back to the Temple of Solomon. Okay, it's important to understand that if you're ever going to understand Freemasonry and what's going on the earth today. Okay, now we're over here on a video I posted on August 7th, 2019, the reality of what is going on today. And in this video, I give you a big, grand overall picture of what is going on. So we'll watch a short section of this because it ties in directly to what is being presented in the report. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. And Donald John Trump is called according to his purpose to free the people of this propaganda, this programming that everyone is under. And understand, guys, I've explained to you the triangle where you have the Soros family, you have the House of Saud, and the Rothschild family, the 666 system. And that same thing can be broke down another way. You can take the same triangle and you can look at it as the City of London, which is the financial arm, Washington, D.C., which is the military arm, and the Vatican, which is the religious arm. Again, one world religion, one world government. It's always been here, right under our nose, but we've been sound asleep. We couldn't see it. Everything that you're looking for in the future, because of the futurism doctrine that was passed to everyone and programmed into everybody, has already happened in the past. He's already set himself up as God, even in the temple of God, showing himself to be God. That's the Vatican. Okay, there's two ladies on the earth. There's the Israel, and then there's the false Israel, or the anti-Israel, or the anti-Christ. And both of them have their temples. But we're not going to get into that today, guys, because going through these articles is already going to take enough time. Just understand, guys, that this futurism nonsense that we were taught is all nonsense. Everything has already happened in the past. In those two videos, I show you that you have the triangle, which is a trinity, guys. It's three sides. Okay, Lucifer which is who they worship, mimics or imitates God. He wants to be like God, and he wants to be greater than God. He wants to show himself as God, and so he takes that which God uses and does, and he makes a fake version of that very thing. And so you have a Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which are in charge over all of creation. And then what does he do? He comes in, he builds his own Trinity. He has the Soros family, the House of Saud, and he has the Rothschilds, which control the monetary system on the earth. You can take the same triangle and you can look and you can see that there is that after the final empire, the Roman Empire, once that 666 system or that beast got that fatal wound and the Roman Empire fell, it got its life back in this three city-state empire, which is a triangle, which is the City of London, the District of Columbia, and the Vatican. Okay, that's how it resurrected. That's how it came back to life, and the world marveled, because here it is. It got a fatal wound, the Roman and final empire, and yet that head that was fatally wounded, yet it lives in this new Trinity that is this empire that reigns and rules over all of the earth. You cannot buy or sell except using their fake, false money systems. You can't buy anything without using the US dollar or the yen or the pound or whatever nation you're in and their central bank. You are under the 666 system, whether you realize it or not, as I've proven throughout various videos that I've made. Now, continuing with the outline here, it says overall outline, the individuals and activities of the entities that will be identified and discussed within this report are the royal family members at the very top of world control, the tribe of Dan, who are the framers and architects of the empire of the three city-states consisting of, and we're going to stop there, the royal family members at the very top of the royal control, i.e. the tribe of Dan. What is the tribe of Dan? The tribe of Dan is one of the 12 tribes of one of the 12 sons of Israel, so it is one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Remember, Jacob was renamed Israel, and then Israel had 12 sons, and those 12 sons are the 12 tribes of Israel, 10 of which became lost, but are clearly found in these last days. So, the tribe of Dan, how is it that the tribe of Dan, that being one of the 12 tribes of Israel, is the one controlling everything, the royal family? Well, as you've probably heard by now, or it has probably been suggested to you at some point in your research, that the royal family are reptilians. Well, what is a serpent? A serpent is a reptile, and they are indeed reptiles because they are indeed a serpent. The tribe of Dan is, and we will show you that with the scriptures because it's very, very important. So we come over here to the book of Genesis and the 49th chapter, and what happens here in the 49th chapter is what verse 1 tells you. And Jacob, now remember, Jacob is the one that is Israel, and Jacob called unto his sons, the 12 sons, and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Now we know in the scriptures that the northern house of Israel, that is the house of Israel. There's the house of Judah in the southern part of Israel, and then the house of Israel in the northern part of Israel. Two different houses make up Israel. The house of Israel ends up disappearing. All 10 of the tribes of the house of Israel end up disappearing from the scriptures. They just vanish, and we no longer have any kind of ability to keep track of where they went. But with this prophecy and these words, it tells you that these 10 tribes, all 12 of the tribes, are still around in the last days. The last days are the days just prior to the returning of Jesus Christ to reign and to rule on the earth. Remember, Jesus, once he went into the belly of the earth and preached the gospel to the dead, he came back up and he ascended up to the right hand of the Father, and he was told to sit at the right hand of the Father until his enemies are made his footstool. And what he did is he handed the power and the authority, all power, over to you and I, the believers, to take down the wicked ones, the enemies of the Lord, so that he can eventually return back to the earth, because he can't return until all of his enemies are made his footstool. So let's take a look at that real quickly, and then we'll continue with the tribe of Dan. Over in the book of Psalms, the 110th chapter, the very first verse, it says, the Lord, all capital letters, the Lord, said unto my Lord, lowercase with one capital letter at the start, sit you at my right hand until I make thine enemies your footstools. Now hopefully by the time I get this series of videos completed, hopefully the video about the Father and Son, at least part 1, hopefully is already done, complete, and released to you guys to watch. If it isn't, then when it becomes released and available to you guys, please go watch it, because in there I make it very clear that absolutely nobody in the Old Testament ever seen God, and neither did they know the Father or the Son. It's very clear. We simply go with the Word and see what the Word says concerning these subjects, and it becomes clear that nobody knew or seen God prior to Jesus Christ showing up on the earth. Okay? So what we're dealing with here is the Lord, all capital letters being the Father, said unto King David, Lord, which would be Jesus, but at that time they are dealing with the angel of the Lord, as I show in that video. Again, hopefully that video is available. If it's not, guys, as soon as it comes out, please go watch it, and it'll show you that they were dealing with the angel of the Lord, who later becomes Jesus and physically lives on the earth with us, but they are dealing with the angel of the Lord. And so he's saying that the Lord, the Father, said unto the Son, or my Lord Jesus Christ, sit you at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. So he is sitting at the right hand of the Father until his enemies are made his footstool. He is not coming back until that is accomplished. In the book of Matthew, in the 22nd chapter and the 44th verse, this question is asked. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand till I make thine enemies your footstool? Question mark. Then we move on to the book of Mark, chapter 12, verse 36, where it tells us, "For David himself said by the Holy Ghost, the Lord," again all capital letters, the Father, "said to my Lord, Jesus, sit you on my right hand till I make thine enemies your footstool." He is there at the right hand of the Father until his enemies are made his footstool. Now, before he left, guys, he gave us the power, all power over the enemy, power over the serpents and the scorpions. In the book of Luke, the 10th chapter and the 19th verse, it says, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you, and power over all, and over all the power of the enemy." You have absolute authority. You are very, very important, unlike what the world has taught you. So you were given the power. It is our responsibility to bring down the enemies of the Lord, so that he can return to reign and to rule for 1,000 years on the earth. Now let's get back to the tribe of Dan, who we will discover is a serpent, and you were given power to tread on serpents and scorpions. You go into the book of Revelation, from the bottomless pit come the scorpions to sting and to torment, and all these kinds of things. You were given power over them. They are here. They've been here for a long time, and they have been stinging. They have been hurting. They have been doing their thing. But let's get back to the tribe of Dan. So back here in the book of Genesis chapter 49, we see that he's going to go down through each of the 12 children, the 12 tribes, and tell you what's going to happen to them in the last days. That means that all 10 tribes are here on the earth in the last days, just prior to the return of Christ. The whole rapture concept that came out in the 1800s is nothing but a false doctrine, because how are you going to be in heaven and yet here when he returns in the last days? How are the 12 tribes going to be here and alive and well if you're raptured out of here? They are still here, you're still here, and you are to reign and to rule on the earth, not in the heavens. Now, yes, later we're going to be judging angels, and all sorts of things are going to be happening, but that's later down the road. That's after we get our new bodies and all those kinds of things. Okay, after these sin bodies are done away with and righteous bodies are received, eternal bodies, when mortality takes on immortality, and so forth and so on. But we're going to skip through all these different tribes, and we're going to come down to the verse 16 and discover some things about Dan. So here we read that in verse 16, Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. So Dan is going to be a judge in the last days. Now, with your Constitution, your Declaration of Independence, your Articles of Confederation, and all of the founding documents that the Founding Fathers put together to establish the law of the land and to establish the law of God over man in America, to give man his unalienable and unalienable rights, and all these various different things to set you, the people, free of this tyranny that's taken over the earth. What they established was a 3-pillar law system, starting with the legislative branch and working your way through if you need to eliminate somebody from office, or if you have been your rights have been infringed upon, or what have you. It's a 3-pillar law system. 3 pillars, guys. No more than 3 pillars, no less. Exactly 3 pillars. A trinity is how our law operates. It's 3 pillars. What's happened is that the British Crown came in, and what do they operate under? They operate under the law of admiralty law, the law of the sea. Okay, that is the law of contracts. And so they brought this 4th pillar in, and it is a fraud against the American people. We have a 3-pillar system, but Dan decided he was going to come in and to put this 4th pillar in here and put this yellow fringe around the flag, telling everybody in the world that the United States, the flag, the ship of the United States, that flag of the United States has been captured and is under admiralty law. That's why you have a yellow fringe around the flag. And we're going to get into information on that in this document, in this report, as it goes back in time and tells you some of the things of the past, to give you kind of a history of things and how it all comes about. So Dan shall be a judge of his people as one of the tribes of Israel. He is the judge, and he came in and slapped this 4th pillar, this admiralty law. Look, guys, when you're in the belly of your mother, you are in water. Okay, admiralty law. law of the sea, law of the ocean, law of the water, which is the law of contract. So you're in the womb in water. Then you go through the birth canal, which is a water system. A canal is a water system. And then you arrive at the dock. And so the doctor comes. All right, look, I'm not going to get into all of this, okay, because it's going to make this series a 40 video series. So just understand that admiralty law and the language of admiralty law all connects together. But this is the Dan that has done this, the British Crown that has come in and has tried to create an entity that is is basically playing the role of government, even though it's not a government. It's an illusion of a government, as we'll get to later in this. So now we go down to verse 17, and we find out that Dan shall be a serpent. Okay, so it's not a question. It clearly tells us that the tribe of Dan shall be or will be a serpent in the last days. By the way, an adder in the path. An adder is a viper, basically. It is a snake. It is a serpent. And the conversation. It is a deadly, very deadly snake, an adder. So Dan shall be a serpent by the way, and an adder in the path, that biteth the horse heels, so that his rider shall fall backwards. And so every time you start to get ahead, you fall back. You start to get ahead, you fall back. You start to get ahead, you fall back. You go into these courts thinking that they're just normal everyday courts, not realizing that the symbology on the flag, what's on top of the flag, what's on the flag, the yellow fringes on the flag, and all of these things, and you don't understand that you're dealing with a completely different language, and then you end up sentencing yourself into prison or into jail because you don't understand the language. So when the judge, this man in all black, comes up and he says, you had your court, and he sentences you, and the last thing he says is, do you understand? And your reasoning, and with the American language, you sit here saying, yes, I do understand what you're saying. Okay, and what you just stated in that court, because the definition of the word understand is not the English definition, but the legalese definition found in the Black's Law Dictionary, what you are stating is when that judge, who has no power over you, remember, you have all the power. You were giving all the power over all of the enemy, period. Okay, so when the judge comes in, he says, do you understand? What he is stating in legalese, according to Black Law's Dictionary, is, do you stand under the sentence I am giving you? Stand under it. And you come in and you say, yes, I understand. I stand under your sentence. And so you put yourself into jail or into prison. Okay, do you see how this all operates? He is the judge of the people as one of the tribes of Israel. So he is a serpent, and what does a serpent do? When a serpent travels in the dirt or in the sand or in the mud or whatever, he leaves a trail to show you exactly where that serpent traveled, and you can just follow that little wiggly trail and all the mark all the way until you find the actual snake by following the mark, the trail. Okay, so let's take a look at what Dan does. Dan is the one that leaves the mark, leaves the name behind to show you where these lost 10 tribes went. And as you go back in your history, you begin to realize that as these 10 tribes disappeared from the scriptures, they were traveling north and they were traveling west, and they end up in Great Britain. They also end up in Denmark and other places, but they ultimately end up in Great Britain. Okay, and then from Great Britain, they spread out to the west, or to the New World, and to their promised land, the real promised land. Yes, that area over there in the Middle East is a promised land, but there is a secondary promised land promised to the children, specifically to Ephraim and Manasseh. But we'll get into that in other videos if they're not already out by the time this video comes out. But let's take a look at how Dan leaves his mark. So over in the book of Joshua, the 19th chapter, in the 47th verse, we read this: And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. Therefore the children of Dan went up to fight against Lashem, and took it, and smote it with the edge of the sword, and possessed it, and dwelt therein, and called Lashem Dan, after the name of Dan their father. So when the Danites, as they travel and they conquer a nation, they then change the name of the nation to represent their father, the tribe of Dan, or to put the name Dan into it. Now understand that in your Old Testament, or in the Old Hebrew, there were no vowels. So the lettering would be D-N. So it can be D-A-N, D-O-N, D-I-N, D-E-N, whatever. It can also be like Dane, D-A-N-E, okay, because the vowels are interchangeable and intermixable, because all you had were the consonants. Now let's look at another verse. So now we're over in the book of Judges in the 18th chapter and the 29th verse, and here we see that, and they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. Howbeit, the name of the city was Laish, or Laish, at the first. And so again, they took the name of the city Laish and they changed it over to Dan, because that's how they leave their mark, and that is how you are able to trace where the lost 10 tribes went. And you end up in one of the areas that you end up is Denmark, right? D-E-N mark, Dan's mark, and so forth and so on. And so you can literally see by the serpent's trail, by the mark, exactly where the 10 tribes went. Ultimately, Dan ends up over here in the British Crown and is trying to judge the world and all the 12 tribes and all the peoples of the earth. And this is how we got this fourth pillar that is a fraud and illegal and unlawful. Now let's get back to the article. The royal family members at the very top of world control, that's who the royal family is. They are the tribe of Dan, who are the framers and the architects. Now again, when I showed you the clip where the Freemasons will always show you the compass and the square. Now they do this for two reasons. One, to show you that the earth is a square and a circle, because the framer's square is a square, to show, you make squares with it, and the compass is used to draw circles. And so they're telling you that they know for a fact that the earth is both a square and a circle, and they hold this information and this knowledge, but they're not giving it to the people. They're withholding it from the people. Secondly, by using the square and the compass, they are showing that they are framers and architects. And what are they framers and architects of? Not buildings. And yes, they have made many buildings, as we can see by the layout of Washington, D.C., the City of London, the Vatican, and so forth, and how they all are identical, and they're all satanic in nature and Luciferian in nature, just by their shapes and designs, pentagons and all the different pentagrams and all the different things that they have in the layout of the city, and the owl and all the stuff. But they not only are they the architects of buildings, but they are mainly the architects of governments that control everything and everyone. So we continue to read here, the royal family members at the very top of world control, i.e. the tribe of Dan, who are the framers and architects of the empire of the three city-states, consisting of London City, the District of Columbia city-state, and the city-state of the Vatican, and their militia, which we'll get to in a minute. But again, what we see here is exactly what I've been showing you guys, is this trinity, this triangle, this thing, where you have the Soros, the House of Saud, and the Rothschilds, and also over that you have the same trinity situation where you have the City of London, the District of Columbia, and the Vatican that control everything, the 666 beast system that has been here before we were ever born, and we were blinded from it so that we could not see it, and they pushed everything off into the future so that you don't look into the past and realize what is really going on the earth. So now, it says here, the City and District of Columbia city-state and the city-state of the Vatican and their militia, the Jesuits. Now remember, Israel, Q is saving Israel for last, okay? Zionism will be the very last thing to be taken down. Okay, there's a process that we have to go through to eliminate the wicked ones from the face of the earth. And the Jesuits, which control the CIA, Mossad, and all the other agencies, three-letter agencies that are a farce and a fraudulent organizations that are trying to act like they are some form of government. Look, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank is a foreign entity outside of the United States, but they're trying to present themselves as being under the United States, even though in reality they have nothing to do with the United States. Same with the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service that is coming in here and taking down or taking from the American people, stealing from the American people. They are the collection agency of the Federal Reserve Bank, both of which, the IRS and the Federal Reserve, are both fraudulent, fake entities outside the United States trying to represent and present themselves as federal agencies. And same with the CIA, FBI, and so forth and so on. Mossad over there in Great Britain, and on it goes. Okay, this fourth pillar that came in and overtook us. So now these Jesuits rule over all of that. Okay, and this is where your false, fake Jews are that call themselves Jews and yet are not Jews. These are the people that run this world. They are the militia of the three-city state empire that was built by the tribe of Dan, the Freemasons. So it says here that the militia, the Jesuits, the conglomeration, more well known as the New World Order, NWO, the three unclean spirits identified where? In the book of Revelations, where you were given revelations to the truth. So he's put here, greed equals London City, power equals city-state of District of Columbia, and control equals city-state of the Vatican. Now, what did I show you in the video? I showed you that London City is the financial arm. What is finances? Greed, okay? He's absolutely dead on, spot on, correct. The city-state of the District of Columbia, I told you, is the military. That is the power arm. When they want to come in here and take over the opiate fields and move their drugs around, they go in, they take over a nation using our military. When they want to do other things, such as eliminate Christians and believers in Jesus Christ, they send the Jesuits out to slaughter them. And that's why we had all the times and tribulations in which all these people were persecuted and murdered and burned on the stake, and all sorts of unimaginable things done to these people by the Vatican. Okay, but anyway, the power, the military might is the District of Columbia, and of course the city-state of the Vatican, the religion side of things, the control of the minds of men. So it's a trinity in which the 666 system is controlling everyone and everything on the earth. Then we go to subsection D, and look, we're still in the report objective here. Subsection D, and the American warriors at the very tip of the spear, who stand in opposition of the tribe of Dan, which is the Federal Postal Judge, Postmaster General, Commander-in-Chief, Russell J. Gold. Very important name. You need to do some serious research on that name and come to an understanding of who Russell J. Gold is and what he has done, including creating a quantum government and a quantum syntax, which brings an absolute end to the wicked ones. Their syntaxes no longer matter. They're all fraud now. Proper syntax in the quantum field is in place. Quantum government, which is the proper government, is in place. A government of truth, as you will see as we go down through this document, down through this report. Okay, and not only that, but a quantum financial system, all of which has been in place for quite some time. In November 2nd, 1999, from that point on, this fraud has been committed because we went through our third bankruptcy, come out of it, and they tried to continue the fraud from that point on, which is all illegal, acting like they're the government. In reality, they are not. They are the enemy. So you have Federal Postmaster Judge, Postmaster General, Commander-in-Chief Russell J. Gold. Now, that means he is the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the Republic. That is Russell J. Gold. Now, that is November 11th, 2016. So it is Obama that is running the fake, false entity that is acting like our government is in position and does not have any power nor any control. Let's continue. Russell J. Gold and his accomplice witness and global corporate government partner, the Federal Postal Judge, David Wynn Miller, which is another individual that you need to do some deep, serious research on. Self-appointed American common law judge Anna von Reitz, or Reitz, I'm not sure which way it is, but either way, you need to do some research, deep research on her, and members of the 11th and 7th PSYOP group or groups. So it is the USS OCOM and the USA KPOC/SOF. And then we go into subsection 0 for my name is, and it is blocked out. I am a 9th generation American and American war fighter. As a patriot and descendant of whom both great-grandfathers on both sides of my family tree fought alongside and under the military command of General George Washington during the American Revolutionary War, I can assure you that I have been ever vigilant in my watch over this nation as my family's heir to this great responsibility. Subsection 1. For I am a former U.S. Armed Forces Special Operations soldier and an elite member of the Psychological Operations, which is a warfare regimen of the U.S. Army Special Operations Forces community. So the USS OCOM, USA CAPOP /SOF from 1999 through 2012. And as you do your research, you'll be able to verify this. Now, we're going to pick it up in part two with the PSYOP capability capes brief, and we will see you then. And that video should be coming out within the next 20 to 30 minutes after this video is released. So guys, if you aren't getting notifications, make sure you have the bell notification engaged. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So we're over here on Able Danger Livestreams YouTube channel, and just to give you an example, because it don't show up on mine because it's my account, but when you go to the if you look directly below the video you're watching, you'll see the growing awareness here, and you'll see you're subscribed here, or unsubscribed if you're not subscribed yet. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, or a thumbs down if you don't like it, and don't forget to subscribe for more great videos. So here we go, is the bell here, and you can see that right now I have it with the little bars, the little things around the bell, showing that I will get notifications. If I hover over it, it'll say if I click it, then I'll stop getting notified about every new video. And when you click it, that's how it looks. It doesn't have the two little sidebars up above the bell there. So now that I'm not getting notifications from him, if your bell looks like that, you're not getting notifications. If you hover over it, it says that if you click it, get notified about every new video. So I click it, and then there's those two bars again right there saying that I'm getting notified. Now I know YouTube takes that bell off of videos and things like that, so from time to time you're just going to have to come back and check and make sure that those bars are around the bell. I'll talk with you guys later. Remember, get in the Word, stay in the Word, get the Word in you. It's very, very important. And other than the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the two most important things are love and truth, and after that, peace and justice.